It started in a quiet New Zealand town where nights used to feel safe. Then fear took hold. A father and his 3 children vanished into the bush and the clock never stopped ticking. Tom Phillips looked like any outdoorsy dad. He knew the tracks, the tides, the weather's turns, but a custody fight turned bitter and he made a choice that shocked his community. He took the kids into the forest. Days became months, then years. Search teams combed cliffs, rivers, and caves. Locals shared sightings that faded like smoke. They built camps in rough country. Heavy rain, cold winds, and long winters pressed in. No school, no doctors, and no neighbors, only the deep green hush. The case grew stranger with time. Police followed clues across farms and back roads. A robbery at a rural store hinted at how they survived and how far Tom would go. People asked how he stayed hidden so long. They asked who helped him and why no one spoke. At the center of it all, 3 young lives waited for a normal day. This story traces the 4 missing years, the choices, the risks, and the crimes that kept food on a campfire, the missteps that kept police guessing. It also looks at the human cost: a mother's empty rooms, a town gripped by worry, children carrying a secret life in the trees. What happened in the end was tragic. It did not bring relief as many had hoped. It left scars and hard questions that still need answers. Keep reading for the full timeline, the search tactics, and the final chase. Learn what drove an ordinary man to a desperate path and how a nation watched, waited, and feared for the kids who were lost in plain sight. Who was Tom Phillips before the nightmare began? Before the headlines, Tom Phillips fit into the rugged rhythm of rural New Zealand. He carried himself like a man who trusted the land more than the city. He knew the bush and the back roads. He could read weather, track, and tide. People saw a capable dad who took pride in being hands-on. He taught his kids skills that most parents would outsource. It looked like a simple life. It was not. He loved his children, that much was clear. Friends talked about a father who stayed close. He kept them out of the spotlight and out of town life. He leaned into self-reliance and privacy. Over time, that privacy hardened into secrecy. The pressure built around the family split. Legal steps followed, as they always do. What began as a dispute turned into a standoff. The first disappearance in September 2021 lasted 19 days. Authorities found them and brought them back. After that, the family court changed the rules. Custody shifted away from Tom. The state, through Oranga Tamariki, took a role. The message to Tom was clear: return the kids, follow the orders, work within the system. He did not. In December 2021, he left again, this time for years. From then on, every choice pulled him farther from the law and the life he knew. He kept moving and stayed quiet. He taught, he hid, and he ran. The story that followed was a survival test, a crime story, and a tragic spiral. The custody fight that pushed him over the edge. The break started at home. Separation led to a custody dispute that grew bitter. With family court rules limiting public detail, the full record stays sealed, but the broad facts are known. After the first disappearance in 2021, Tom lost legal custody of his 3 children. Orders were in place. The children were not to be with him. Agencies were watching. He ignored the orders. He kept the children with him, out of school and out of reach. He framed it as protection. He believed the kids were better off in his care, far from what he called a bad influence. He saw risk where the court saw stability. He saw love and duty where the law saw defiance. That clash drove every move he made. He leaned on his skills as an outdoorsman and on a tight bond with the kids. He homeschooled and taught survival. He turned the wild into a classroom. It sounded noble to some. For the children, it meant cold nights, illness without doctors, and years without friends. It meant living in fear of footsteps and headlights. Key moments shaped the fight and his refusal to give in. Court orders placed the children under state care. Tom would not accept the ruling. The September 2021 disappearance ended after 19 days. He returned, then lost custody. In December 2021, he vanished again without legal custody, triggering a national search. He stopped attending court and ignored legal summons. The case moved from family law into criminal charges. Relatives and locals pleaded for the children's return. Police said he did not have legal custody when he left the second time. Child welfare officials took the position that safety meant structure, school, and medical care. The gulf between that view and Tom's belief system was wide. He saw the bush as safer than the court's plan. The court saw harm in isolation and flight. It is easy to feel the pull of his story. A father, proud and stubborn, sure he knows best. A system imperfect but trying to protect children. Both sides claimed the kids' welfare. Only one was willing to follow the rules that keep children safe when parents split. The cost of his choice stacked up day by day. He taught his kids to hide. He taught them silence. He also taught them that love means breaking the law if you believe in your cause. That is a heavy lesson for young hearts. In the end, his belief hardened into a mission. He cast himself as a guardian against harm. He became a fugitive father instead. The custody fight did not just push him, it cornered him. He stepped over the line, then walked for miles past it. The court's orders were clear, so were the consequences. The tragedy is that he saw rescue where everyone else saw risk, and he stuck to it until there was nowhere left to go. The sudden disappearance that shook New Zealand. The day started as a rumor, then grew into a fear that felt like a weight. A father and 3 kids were gone, and the sea threw up their clue. What followed grabbed the country by the throat. The coast was combed, the rivers checked, and the hills watched. Every hour felt like a race that kept ending at the same line. Police set the tone early. This was not a family outing gone long. It was a disappearance with a wrecked ute and a hostile coast as the backdrop. People held their breath and waited for the water or the bush to give something back. Nothing came. Early clues in the first failed hunt. The first break was a bad one. Tom's Toyota Hilux turned up at Curator Beach, battered by waves and salt. It looked like a sign of panic or a plan. The tide had chewed at it, and the sand around it held no clear story. No footprints that led far, no gear left behind that made sense, just a truck near the surf and a long list of awful guesses. The response was fast and huge. Crews pushed in from land, sea, and sky. Helicopters traced the cliffs. Planes ran tight grids. Rescue boats and jet skis cut over rough water. Teams swept river mouths and caves. Drones scanned for heat in the scrub and the gullies. For weeks, the search moved like a second tide, steady and relentless, and every day ended with no kids, no father, no answers. Then a grim thought took hold. If the sea did not have them, the land did. The Maricopa back country is thick with dense bush and tangled tracks. The ridgelines fold into valleys that swallow sound. Streams twist through slips and fern. A person who knows those hills can vanish from sight in a minute. A person who teaches kids to keep quiet, to sleep cold, to move early and late can vanish for years. The early clues were thin but telling. The ute's position suggested a deliberate drop, not a crash. No signs of a final meal, no camp debris, no clear trail south or north. The weather in those days swung from drizzle to sharp wind, perfect for washing out scent and tracks. What searchers learned later and the hard way fit the pattern. The 4 had camped rough. They used tents or makeshift shelters and dug in under trees. They kept fires low and short. They moved at odd hours. They wore drab colors and at times camouflage. They lived off what Tom could hunt, gather, or steal. That skill set beats even a large search when the bush gives cover and the locals stay quiet. The terrain did not just hide them. It punished the people looking. Steep bluffs forced long detours. Deep-cut streams stalled dogs and people. Radio contact faded in pockets of thick canopy. One slip could break a leg, so teams had to slow down. Every ridge hid 3 more. Helicopters saw only green on green. Drones found heat from possums and rocks warmed by sun. The line between a lead and a false hope blurred by the hour. By the end of that first big push, the search felt cursed. Crews had done the textbook things and more. The tide charts were checked and checked again. The caves near the beach were mapped, the headlands swept, and the rivers cleared. Locals were interviewed twice. Tips kept coming, but none with teeth. The fear shifted shape. It was no longer a fear of the sea, it was the fear of a plan. Looking back, it is clear why they stayed hidden. Tom knew the country and how to read it. He trained the kids to stay small and quiet. He picked routes that ducked cameras and avoided farm tracks with clear lines of sight. He accepted discomfort as the price of staying free. He turned the Waikato bush into a cloak. That first hunt ended with a bitter truth. The land was big, the search was smart, and still it was not enough. The ute on the beach was a door closing, not opening. From that point on, police were chasing shadows and whispers, and the bush kept its secret. Surviving in the wild, crimes and close calls on the run. He taught the kids to move like shadows and live light. When food ran low, he pushed further into the bush, then back to the roads for quick hits. Each crime bought time, but it also turned the quiet chase into a high-risk hunt. By 2023, this was no longer a missing persons file. It was a fugitive story with a loaded weapon and 3 young witnesses. The desperate acts that made him a wanted man. The turning point came in 2023. Survival crossed a line and the case hardened. Police reframed him as dangerous, not just missing, and the country took notice. Here are the key crimes that pushed the manhunt into overdrive. May 2023, aggravated robbery TQED. He entered with a firearm. Shots were fired at a member of the public. No one was killed, but the message was clear: he would use force to stay free. August 2023, vehicle theft. He stole a Toyota, then used it during a grocery store robbery. Cameras caught him, and one of his children was with him. That image sickened people. It also proved he was still in the area and willing to take bigger risks. Each act stacked pressure on the search. The armed robbery turned the file into a top priority. Tactical teams were briefed, patrols widened. The August theft linked him to fresh movement and a supply run. Police could mark his habits, patterns, and routes. Firearm use raised the risk at every contact point. Locals who might have looked the other way began to call in tips. The public response grew. The reward climbed in steps until it hit 80,000 NZD for information. That number did two things. It flushed out new leads and it warned anyone thinking of helping him. A neighbor's silence could now be worth money, and the kids' faces were back on every news break. Why these crimes moved the needle? They showed intent. He was not waiting to be found. He was arming up and striking fast. They put the children at scenes of violence. That raised the stakes for child welfare and the courts. They narrowed the map. Food, fuel, and gear had to come from somewhere. Each theft left a breadcrumb. By late 2023, police called him a high-risk offender. They warned he might be armed, volatile, and desperate. The bush still hid him, but every supply run risked a clash. The chase had shifted from search grids to containment, and time was no longer on his side. How the kids endured the harsh forest life. The children lived a life most people would not choose for a weekend, let alone years. They woke cold, slept lighter than they should, and learned to stay quiet when branches cracked. The wild can be a teacher. It can also be a thief. Daily life likely followed a tight, simple rhythm. Early movement before light, then long holds under thick cover. Small fires or no fires to avoid smoke. Warmth traded for safety. Meals made from tinned food when they had it, game or fish when they did not. Clothes layered and patched, boots wet for days after rain. Cold weather is hard on young bodies. Wet gear drains heat and energy. Without steady nutrition, growth stalls, minor illnesses linger, cuts and burns take longer to heal. Police worried about all of it, from infections to hunger to the grind of stress. No school meant lost lessons, but also lost friends, teams, and routine. That loss leaves marks you cannot see on a scan. The emotional load was heavy. Imagine carrying secrets through every hour. Silence drills teach focus, but they also teach fear. Every engine on a road sounds like trouble. Loyalty to a parent clashes with the pull of a normal life. Children in that position often grow hyper-alert. They scan faces and tree lines. They read mood changes like weather. That skill helps in the bush. It hurts in a classroom. Re-entry is not as simple as a ride home. It is a slow thaw. Police and family had the same core fear. Long isolation cuts children off from safe adults. It narrows their world to one voice. Add a firearm and a life on the run, and every day becomes a coin toss between routine and danger. There were small wins in those woods. They learned knots, firecraft, and how to read a stream. They learned grit. But the cost was steep. No dentist, no clinics, no school nurse, no stable bed. Winter bit hard. Hunger haunted the edges. The kids did not choose this life. They made the best of it because children always do. The compassion sits with them. They followed a father they trusted into a place that asked too much. When the lights finally reached them, what they needed was simple: warm rooms, steady meals, and people who do not whisper at night. The tireless police hunt and public outcry. The search did not sleep. Police circled the back roads, checked cameras, and returned to the same gullies again and again. Each tip sent them sprinting. Each silence cut deeper. The country watched, angry and afraid, as weeks turned into years. The faces of 3 children became a national ache. Officers fronted media, asked for sightings, and warned the public to keep a safe distance. Tactical teams stood ready when robbery charges entered the file. Locals saw marked cars at odd hours and checkpoints pop up without warning. The bush felt bigger. The town felt smaller. People whispered in stores, and every stranger raised suspicion. Pressure built in waves. Posters spread across Waikato and beyond. Social feeds lit up with possible sightings. Some were close, many were wrong, but the noise kept the case alive and the noise mattered. It made the bush feel less safe for a man trying to stay hidden, and it kept the children's names on every front page. Rewards and pleas that kept the search alive. The money spoke first, then louder. The reward climbed until it hit 80,000 NZD, a number large enough to make anyone think twice about staying quiet. That figure became a headline in itself. It sat on posters and TV chyrons, and it kept the phones buzzing. For police, it was a lever. For the family, it was hope with a dollar sign. The children's mother faced cameras and begged for answers. Her voice cut through the static. She asked for sightings, for mercy, for a safe handover. She did not talk law or blame. She talked about her kids needing warmth, school, and care. Those appeals were raw and simple, which made them powerful. Each one reset the story. This was about children, not a bush legend. People rallied in small, steady ways that added up. Cafes set out donation jars to print flyers and cover fuel for volunteer runs. Community groups organized collections and topped up the pot for fresh leads. Local businesses offered vouchers for information that helped police move faster. Churches and halls hosted quiet gatherings, with prayer for the kids and resolve for the search. The result was a shared drumbeat. Money, attention, and compassion lined up on one side, with the children at the center. Even those who once admired the survival tale shifted as the risk grew. Armed crimes changed the mood. The public understood that every supply run could turn violent and that the kids were close to it. Police used the spotlight well. They refreshed appeals, released stills, and pushed clear guidance. Report sightings fast, do not approach, protect the children first. They also asked relatives to front the cameras, adding familiar faces to the campaign. It was a calculated move, and it kept the story human. The reward did more than attract tips. It changed the social math. Silence had a price tag. A neighbor's hunch could pay rent or at least fund the next stage of the search. It also put pressure on anyone thinking of helping Tom. A quiet drop of fuel or food now carried risk, not just guilt. In the end, the public outcry gave the hunt its legs. Money kept the lines open. The mother's pleas kept hearts open. And the country, restless and worried, kept looking to the tree line and hoping the next call would be the one. The violent showdown and heartbreaking rescue. It ended in a blur of blue lights, wet bush tracks, and a child standing too close to gunfire. The years in hiding crashed into minutes of chaos. Police closed in, a shot rang out, and the man who had kept 3 kids off the grid fell where he stood. What followed was a rescue that felt both urgent and unbearably tender. What happened in those final moments? The operation started with a tip and a moving target. Before dawn, police tracked Phillips after a break-in at an agricultural store near Piopio. He fled on a quad bike with one of his children, cutting across rough ground as patrols converged. Officers used spikes to disable the bike. The bush swallowed the noise for a second, then the shots began. Phillips fired first, using a high-powered rifle at close range. An officer went down, hit hard, and other units sprinted in. The wounded officer was pulled to safety and rushed to hospital. He survived after surgery, a credit to fast first aid and calm teamwork under fire. The standoff compressed into seconds. Phillips kept shooting, shifting his position and trying to control the scene. Police shouted commands, returned fire only when they had to, and tried to keep the child out of the line. Then it ended. One police round struck Phillips and stopped the exchange. The gunfire ceased, the air cleared, and the years of running were over. The child at the scene was shaken but alive. Officers moved fast to separate the young witness from the weapons scattered nearby. They gathered blankets, spoke softly, and put distance between the child and the body. That quick care mattered. It turned a crime scene into a rescue. What came next had its own tension and heart. The rescued child helped police locate the other 2 siblings. Crews pushed deeper into dense bush, guided by tracks and quiet details only a family would know. About 13 hours later, they found a remote campsite tucked behind heavy cover, roughly 2 kilometers from the shooting site. The camp was rough, dim, and well used. One child held a firearm at first contact, trained by years of fear. Negotiators stepped forward and worked with patience. No shouting, no rush. They talked, listened, and promised safety. The child laid the weapon down. Both siblings walked out. Key beats from the rescue. The quad bike stop set the stage for the clash. A police officer was critically injured, then stabilized and discharged days later. A single fatal shot from police ended Phillips' fire. The first child was secured within minutes, then guided officers toward the others. About 50 police staff rotated through the recovery effort in the bush. The final 2 children left the campsite safely, with no shots fired. At the end of a long, violent morning, the focus shifted to warmth and food, not evidence bags. Medics checked the kids. Officers offered water and gentle voices. The gear at the camp hinted at years of strain, but the scene now held something else: relief. The last images were simple: tired faces, steady hands, 3 kids stepping into a world that had waited for them. Life after the forest, healing for the children and family. The rescue ended the hiding. Not the hurt. 3 children stepped out of the bush and into bright rooms, warm beds, and a world that had kept their names close for years. Safety came fast, healing moves slower. The next chapter is quieter, careful, and full of choices that will shape the rest of their lives. First days, safety routine and calm voices. The first step was simple care: food that stayed down, hot showers, clean clothes, a nurse who speaks softly and moves slow. Police handed off to social workers and clinicians who watched for shock, dehydration, and infection. Sleep came in bursts. Nightmares arrived like ambushes. Stability grows from small, repeatable things. Set meal times and short checkups instead of constant exams. Familiar faces at wake-up and bedtime. Clear rules that feel safe, not harsh. The point is to lower the volume, reduce adrenaline, replace fear with predictability. Oranga Tamariki in the court, who holds the wheel now. The children sit under the family court with Oranga Tamariki guiding care. That means orders, assessments, and a staged plan for where the kids live, learn, and visit. The aim is safety first, then steady growth. What that looks like in practice: a lead social worker coordinates school, health, and contact with family. Psychological assessments set a baseline, then shape therapy plans. Placement choices favor stability and familiar ties when safe. The system is not perfect, but it gives structure, and structure is oxygen after chaos. The weight of trauma, what the kids carry. 4 years in hiding leaves marks you cannot see. Add the shock of violence and a parent's death, and the load gets heavier. Experts call this complex trauma. It blends grief, fear, loyalty binds, and survival habits that once kept them safe. Watch for patterns like hyper-alert scanning and startle responses, sleep issues, flashbacks, and body pain with no clear cause, silence around hard topics or sudden anger when pressed, fierce loyalty to the story they lived in the bush. None of this means they are broken, it means they adapted. Therapy helps them trade old survival skills for new strengths. The road back to school and friends. School is not just reading and math. It is laughter, rules, and low-stakes drama. It teaches trust. Returning needs a plan that respects the kid's pace. A smart reentry plan often includes short days at first with a calm space if stress spikes. One trusted adult at school who checks in daily. Clear privacy boundaries so peers do not pry. Simple goals like finishing a group project or joining lunch. Wins should be small and frequent. Confidence grows in inches, then feet. Therapy that works in the long haul. Healing is not a single appointment, it is a sequence. Skilled clinicians may mix methods over time, adjusting to each child's needs. Proven approaches often include trauma-focused therapy to process memories without drowning in them. Play or art therapy for younger minds that speak best through symbols. Grief counseling to handle loss without losing the past. Family sessions to rebuild trust and set healthy boundaries. The measure of progress is simple: fewer bad nights, more moments of fun, longer stretches without fear. Reuniting with mom and extended family. The bond with their mother matters, so do ties with grandparents, aunts, and cousins. Contact should be careful, honest, and guided by professionals. No surprises, no sudden demands. Stronger reunions use these rules. Prepare the kids with what will be said and what will not. Keep meetings short at first, with a clear end time. Let children name their feelings without fixing them in the moment. Agree on one shared story that avoids blame in front of the kids. Love fixes a lot, consistency fixes the rest. Media privacy and the public's hunger. The case drew cameras and hot takes. That attention does not switch off. Privacy orders and ethical media help put distance between the children and the spotlight. adults must hold that line. Good practice is blunt. No identifying details about schools or routines. No interviews with children now or later. Family and friends keep photos offline. Professionals use neutral language, never drama. Curiosity fades when there is nothing new to feed it. The community's job, quiet support, not noise. Neighbors and locals carried this story for years. Now their help looks different. It is measured and discreet. Ways a community can truly help. Offer rides, meals, or school supplies without fanfare. Give space in public, treat the kids like any others. Redirect gossip, protect their privacy in small conversations. Support the mother with childcare breaks and practical tasks. Kindness lands best when it is quiet and steady. What progress looks like over months and years. There is no straight line. There will be flashbacks, hard anniversaries, and tough school terms. Progress shows up in small, sturdy signs. Look for shifts like the kids plan for the future, even a weekend plan. Laughter shows up more often and it stays. Sleep improves, appetites return, body tension eases. They tell their story with fewer gaps and less fear. Healing is not forgetting, it is remembering without reliving. Hard questions that do not have fast answers. People will argue about choices that led here. They will ask about fault, force, and missed signs. Those questions matter, but not to the children right now. Their job is to grow. The adult's job is to keep them safe, tell the truth with care, and build a life that does not crack under stress. Hold two truths at once. A father loved his children, he also brought them harm. The kids can honor real moments of love and still choose a different path. The promise ahead. The forest took years. The next years belong to warm rooms, honest talk, and a calendar that means something again. With expert care and a family that shows up, these children can write a new ending. Not a neat one, but a strong one. That is enough, and it is possible. A quiet town held its breath, then the bush fell silent. The Tom Phillips case shows how a custody fight can twist into danger, how a fugitive father can turn survival into a crime story, and how fast love can lose its compass when fear takes the wheel. The children walked out with grit and scars, a living proof that strength can survive years of cold and quiet. This ending should not repeat. Families in crisis need faster help, safer pathways, and early checks that stop desperate choices before they harden. New Zealand can build better support systems, from court timetables and counseling access to smarter community alerts that protect kids without glamorizing the chase. Hold tight to what matters. Value family bonds, protect them within the law, and choose care over secrecy every single time. If this story moved you, add your thoughts below, share what you learned, and keep the focus on safe homes, steady hands, and children who never have to hide again.